Good evening, folks. How's everyone doing tonight?
Great. How are you?
Living the life, It's actually not melt your face off outside, so it's really nice. How about you guys?
Right. It's 99 here.
Oh, sorry.
Just touch your face.
Let me just back that up then.
Yeah, back it up. You can complain when it's snowing and 6
okay.
inches outside.
I hope that we get some snow, but actually I saw where our Farmer's Almanac is predicting that we have a really wet winter. So hopefully that's the case. I love snow. And even though it's been 99, I have been in the central over here at my mama's. So it's been okay. It's been bearable.
There you go. Yeah, we had to get the air conditioner repaired on our car, and because you do not want to go through the summer here with the humidity.
Right.
No, it's gross.
Yeah, I had a Charger. I had a Charger a few years back, and it had black interior. And when the condenser went out, I was just like, "Oh my god, I want to die." It was hot. It was bad. So yeah, I feel that pain.
Yeah, my AC went out in my car, so I've been feeling it because I don't have an extra 2 Gs right now. But that's all right.
Oh my god. That is crazy.
I feel your pain. I do feel your pain.
That's the bad side. On the plus side, I've been helping some people out. I've had a really cool 2 weeks. Like, I couldn't be here 2 weeks ago because I've still got to finish writing my articles and uploading all my content. Did anybody else have an issue with IG a couple of weeks ago? Okay, because it was like bugging out my phone. So I went to the ACC kickoff. I did 56 interviews in 3 days. Low key, y'all know I'm a Heels fan, boo Duke, but I was really impressed with Riley Jones, Duke's QB. But low key, I actually think Boston College will do better than they did last year.
Okay.
And I accidentally provoked a particular football coach by one of my questions. It was an innocuous question. I didn't mean to upset him, but I redeemed myself. So that's good.
Okay. It happens. I've been in press conferences where it went the wrong way, and it was like, oh no, I didn't mean for that to happen whatsoever. So it happens to all of us.
Yeah. And then there's another football coach at the end that I just was not impressed with. It was like, this is why I'm not a fan of your team. I never have been.
Right.
And so obviously they're in North.
Guess? No. So would I be able to guess?
You can take a guess. I'm not gonna. I'll confirm.
No, I'm not. No. I'm not saying anything on. But I feel like I know who this is that you were saying.
Thank you. We love you too. Thank you for watching.
And then to go to the ACC press conference and then all the drama happened the very next day, or it started, the domino effect the very next day. Well, when I say domino effect, I really feel like OU and Texas started this last year when we announced that we were going to be leaving the Big 12 and going to the SEC, which won't happen until next season. But it's crazy. The college conferences things going on right now is crazy. I expect to see Clemson in the ACC pretty soon.
Clemson's in the ACC.
Oh, okay. There was. I thought
Clemson football makes ACC.
I thought they were
doable in football.
Well, I was thinking that they wanted to leave wherever they were at.
There's like some people want them to go to the SEC, but it's just not going to happen. One interesting tidbit is Georgia Tech's new coach, Coach Collins, has said that it's time to change the narrative for Georgia Tech versus Georgia. I love the goals. I love the ambition. He's been there for a year and a half. Georgia ain't going anywhere. And Megan, I don't know if you've seen this in some of the football chats and not, but I was getting into a debate. I was like, no, Georgia's going to win it again this year. You forget how sturdy their D is.
I mean, I keep up with my own team. I did see the preseason rankings that came out. They had Texas at number 12. because we lost some players, we lost players, and then of course Georgia and Alabama at the top. I think Texas can beat Alabama. I don't know that Texas could beat Georgia, but I think Texas could beat Alabama.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes.
I'm all for it because I have a very unpopular opinion. I think that Nick Saban is an amazing coach, right?
Right.
I do not think he's a good quarterback coach. I think he gets lucky with quarterbacks. And I know that's unpopular.
What about Jalen? What about Jalen?
6 years in.
What do you mean 6 years in?
Yeah, didn't he bench him, and that's why he went to Oklahoma?
After he had like three different quarterback coaches in the NFL. So like no knock on him, but because the contrary, Mac Jones, he's going into his 4th season.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like Jalen's not in his 6th season, is he?
Yeah. Carrie.
Okay.
What?
You're the Eagles fan. You're the Associated Eagles
not
fan.
Eagles.
No, he's in. Well,
yeah, I was correcting myself.
I'm pretty sure.
He's a year behind or 2 years behind Mahomes, and Mahomes is just now in his 6th.
He was drafted in 2020. He's in his 3rd season, going into his 4th. So. All right, well let's go ahead and get started on our topics that we have for tonight.
Yes, we are going to lead off with the United States women's sports or soccer team. They were eliminated out of the playoffs. Megan, we wanted to kind of focus on Megan Rapinoe's illustrious career, since this is most likely her last game from all.
It was, it was her last game. There is something that just as a female that's in the sports industry, just what Megan has done for women in sports in general as a whole, it has been something amazing. She's 38 years old, literally was a part of the fight, taking them to the Supreme Court 2 different times. If you have a chance to go watch their documentary, LFG, it's so good. I know she rubs some people the wrong way, but they would not be getting equal pay right now if she had not been a part of that movement, I don't believe, and that's something where you look at comparatively, if you're going to compare men's and women's, the women's national team has been incredibly successful compared to the men's over the last 35 years or so. But speaking of that as well, I think that there's been kind of a lot of unfair criticism of the women's team. They made it all the way to the 16 stage. Like that means they were one of the best 16 teams in the world. I mean, that's still incredibly good. So we go into the Olympics last year in Tokyo, or 2 years ago in Tokyo. We get beat by Canada. We end up taking the silver. Everybody criticized the team that they were a little bit older. And they had a lot of older players on the team. They have been playing together. Most of those players had been playing together about 10 to 15 years together. And so they revamped the roster. They left about 3 veterans on there. They revamped the roster, and then they look young. You know what I mean? Like, these ladies have only been playing together for about 6 to 8 weeks. And they don't have quite the same chemistry because they don't have the same amount of time playing together. And then also, like, the age range of the average player now is anywhere from 17 to 24 years old. Like, they're young. You got to give them time to gel together. Every dynasty has to reset. You, Jen, specifically know, because when UNC lost Roy, like, you have to reset the dynasty. It's part of it. Like San Antonio Spurs, whenever we lost Timmy Manu and Tony Parker, like, we had to reset and we had to rebuild, and it's going to take a little time. And then also comparatively, I think that the rest of the world has also kind of caught up to how good we are. The sport is a much more popular worldwide now, and they've kind of caught up to us. And so we're just going to have to figure our way through this going into our next tournament. But, I still think that they did good. Sweden, when they drew Sweden, I knew it was a tough draw. I knew this was going to be really tough. And it came down to Megan's penalty kick. And she hasn't missed a penalty kick in 8 years, y'all. Like, and she just kind of dropped down to the ground and was like, you got to be kidding me. You know, like it was, I just can't believe that her career ended that way, because when you talk about women's soccer, you can't tell the story of women's soccer without Megan Rapinoe. It's not possible. So, you know, no matter what you think about her on the field or off the field, it really doesn't matter, because you can't tell the story of women's soccer without Megan Rapinoe. And so just as, like I said, as a woman in sports, you know, just a thank you to her to continue to fight for equal pay and to keep female athletes relevant.
And in all honesty, like you said it about 30 years ago, that's, first of all, the U.S. is finally catching up with the rest of the world with soccer. In my opinion.
Yeah.
The U.S. women's team really started making a big splash with Mia Hamm, and when she went to her first FIFA World Cup in '87. Now she's still doing commercials with MJ, you know? Like, I mean, and what Megan Rapinoe has done for women in sports and equal pay is so inspiring. That doesn't mean I agree with everything she's ever said or done. But you two just disagreed with what I said about Nick Saban, and that's okay, because you know what? We're in the United States, and we're allowed to disagree.
Right.
So, right. Absolutely. Right.
Here's the thing I have to my 2 cents on this is, I stood up when no one else would say anything, and in the process, the ridicule and the torment that was passed down to just me, not to anyone else, when I was a teacher, was very hard for me to handle. It caused me health issues. Ended up losing my passion, where I think I was called to go. And so there's lots of things because of what I went through, I will not go back. Mine was a local platform.
Right.
I cannot imagine what she must feel on a worldwide platform where people are throwing gasoline on her, and the amount of courage and fortitude it takes to stand up for what you feel right, whether it's comfortable or not to be in that position, is unbelievable. And for that, I am inspired and amazed. I do not align with everything that she did, but I don't always, if I were to compare myself to my younger self, don't align with things like choices I made then to where I am now. We all go through growth. We all change, as we age, as we have different experiences, we all have different reactions. And I don't think my reactions would be the same at age 20 as it is at age 50. So that being said, I applaud her for standing up and standing out and having a voice for those that do not have a voice.
Right.
And my last thing I'm going to say is, it takes someone or some people to stand up and say something when it is hard for things to move. If we step back and take a look at how the United States was formed and how we declared our independence, there were very many people that were already living in the United States that did not want us to declare independence, and they were aligned with England still. Please, go back and read this stuff. So, if we had not had people like Megan Rapinoe decades ago, centuries ago, we wouldn't even be a nation. So, it's kind of one of those things that it is uncomfortable. It has to be done for change to ever happen. Mm-hmm. And human nature is resistant to change. So it's an internal battle as well as external. So I just applaud her. I think the courage that she has shown through this whole thing is pretty amazing.
And
absolutely
100%. And I'll say this also. The women's team had 6 weeks to become a team.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You don't really become that team. You don't become that gelled versus 8 years.
Right. Like those other ladies had been playing together for like 10 to 15 years. And that was the
100%.
criticism. It was either they were too old when we lost to Canada in the Olympics, so they revamped the roster. Of course, you're going to add some rookies. It's going to take time.
Yeah.
Like it's just the way it is. And so, I fully believe that if it had been okay, so for example, Harry Kane, who plays for my football club in England, he's probably one of the best players in the world, right? He had an off season last year, and did anybody criticize him the way that they criticized the women's national team? Oh, you need to quit acting like celebrities and just play ball, or like it was. Yeah. You don't see that same type of criticism, and I think that hopefully we have people that give them some grace. They're young ladies. They're 17 to 24 years old.
Yeah.
Like literally, that's how old they are.
These young girls are not still in high school.
Right. And then they have these
international
pressure. Like, look at this international pressure they have, not only just to go perform well. Everyone expects America to perform well. So you have pressure from the entire world. And then look how the country that you're representing, look how they're treating you. So yeah. I'm proud of the ladies. They made it to.
I think as citizens, we have egg on our face because we are our nation's motto is home of the free, or land of the free, home of the brave. And yet we as a society have lashed out on a world platform against people that were representing us. I don't necessarily align with that. Soccer is not my jam, and that's okay too. But how embarrassing that as people that are so much of patriot and go USA will let one person decide how you're going to support our national team.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I just wish people would give more grace sometimes. I get Megan is a very decisive. And
I think most of the people that were criticizing them probably didn't even watch them.
Thank you, because I'm not gonna lie,
you don't even watch women's soccer, but you're running your mouth about it.
Yeah,
like that's how I feel about it. You don't even watch women's soccer, but yeah, you want to criticize them because when they lost at this stage, and you have a dislike for their team captain. That's my opinion on it.
Well, I had someone even comment on a post of mine that I don't even know how she commented on my post, and it doesn't matter. But she's like, well, she shouldn't be on the Olympics. And I'm like, well, okay, so why don't she played on the Olympics? This was not an Olympic team. This is not an Olympic year. So we have a whole bunch of people that are funneling, and they decide this is it.
I have no idea what they're talking about.
They don't really. It's that whole, and it's a woman's sport, and so I have been in several chats. Listen, guys, you can't be slamming. I'm like, I have a bias here, but you have people on your personal professional team that you do not like. That does not mean that you turn your back on the team itself. You don't have to root for that person. You do not turn your back on the team.
Right. Do you know who got overlooked when Michael Phelps won all of his, and Michael Phelps, like on Twitter or on X, if you're not following him, follow Saged Up. But he posted a question today. He was like, who would you have dinner, like lunch with? What athlete? I actually answered incorrectly. I should have deleted that. But I would have actually had picked Dara Grace Torres, who, when Michael Phelps went his final Olympics, she was 41 years old. In the first heat, I think she won a couple of medals too.
Oh, wow.
That happened.
Right.
And so, I don't care how old you are. If you're in shape, go for it.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
And and Megan and Carrie, to your point earlier, Megan has that international stage, but also to your point, you had a local stage. You still impacted people. Mm-hmm. And one thing I hate, and I know somebody who's probably watching us will think this is directed at them, but I'm just going to put this out here. If you've never been an athlete, if you've never been a competitor, You're not allowed to say if you ain't first, you're last. Just not, because you know what? That's a BS statement.
That is a comedy line from Ricky Bobby. Come on.
Like, I never
right. Yeah. If you're basing your sports analyst on Ricky Bobby,
but I will say this, and I'm not directing this at that
person. Me. Let's talk.
I'm just saying. But
and then even at the end of the movie, Ricky Bobby learned that was a stupid metaphor.
Yes. And honestly, the highlight for me was after I got put on Ritalin and my time started going down, which was a good thing. My coach, who actually taught Melvin Stewart how to swim his signature fly, she created it for him, was actually, I looked up, I was doing butterfly one day for 400 IM. I look up and she's cheering me on at the end of my lane. Frankie never got out of her seat. She didn't get out of her seat for Melvin at the Pan American Games. She didn't get Olympic trials. She didn't do it. She got out of her seat for me. That was a win for me. And this is somebody who was never going to go to the Olympic trials. Okay, I'll shut up now.
That's even a whole nother story about compensation for athletes that are playing for the love of the game and what they have to do on the side. But that's something we can discuss another day.
That's a really good segue to what our happy story is for the night.
It is. But before we go there, let's let Miss Megan, our queen of hoops, take us through the W.
Oh, yes. Sorry, Megan.
Oh, no problem. So we had a really spicy Sunday game day in the W this past weekend. We had 4 different games. We had the Fever versus the Dream. Dream comes out on top 82-73. Alicia Gray had 21 points, 4 boards, or 4 assists, 3 boards. Ryan Howard had 24, 3, and 4. Cheyenne Parker had 16, 3, and 6. On the Indiana side of things, Leah Boston had 25 and 10. Kelsey Mitchell had 20 points, and Erica Wheeler had 15, 5, and 5. At the next game, this is where things get a little spicy. The LA Sparks versus the Washington Mystics. Sparks come out on top 91-83. Azurá Stevens goes for 17, 1, and 6. Carly Samuelson had 13. NECA had 20, 5, and 10. Jordan Canada had 15 points. And then on the Washington side of things, Tiana Hawkins had 23 points. Brittany Sykes had 17. And then Natasha Cloud had 13, 7, and 6. There was a brawl at the end of, or a scuffle at the end of the game. And there was about less than a minute to go. Unfortunately, okay, so both of those players were ejected. It was between Brittany Sykes and Laisha Clarendon on the Sparks. And then so they were both ejected. Well, last night fines were handed out to Ariel Atkins and Shakira Austin for the Washington Mystics because they left the bench during the scuffle. Then we had the Aces versus the Liberty. Number 1 seed goes down in this game, 99-61. On the Liberty side of things, Brianna Stewart had 23, 5, and 6, but Nyjah Laney had 13, 3, and 9. Jonquel Jones had 12, 4, and 14. Sabrina had 31, 7, and 5, only played 3 quarters. And then Courtney Vandersloot had 10, 6, and 4. On the Vegas side of things, Asia had 9, 2, and 7. She went for 2 of 14. Worst shooting performance of the season for her. This will likely never happen that again this season. Then Chelsea Gray had 15, 6, and 3, and then Kelsey Plum had 12. So this was the first of 4 matchups that the Aces and the Liberty are going to be playing in this month. This game was in New York, so they definitely had the advantage of being a home court advantage there. On the 15th, we will see the second matchup between this team. It will be in Vegas because it is the Commissioner's Cup. Vegas is the reigning champ of the Commissioner's Cup, so they get the home court advantage. That will be the 15th. And then on the 17th, they play again in Vegas. And then on the 28th, they go back to New York and they finish this series up between these 2 teams. These are the 1 and 2 seeds versus each other. So this is definitely could possibly be a preview of our finals. It just kind of depends on seeding and how all of that goes. And then on to the next game, we had the Chicago Sky versus the Dallas Wings. Chicago Sky comes out on top. the Wings played them twice over this past week and could not catch a win. In this game, they lost 104-96. On the Chicago side of things, Clea Copper had 23 points. Marina Mabry, who is a former Wing, had 32 points on her old team. Dana Evans had 14, and Morgan Bursch had 11 points also. On the Dallas side of things, Arike had 14 points. Tierra had 11 and 9. Natasha Howard had 24 points, and then Satu Sabali had 25, 8, and 5. And then Kalani Brown had 13 points off of the bench. There was also an altercation in this game between Dana Evans and Odyssey Sims. And then Arike was ejected during the game with contact with the ref, and then was fined for the contact with the ref. And she was also fined last night for publicly criticizing the ref. So this was all in a 4-hour period. WNBA Twitter was insane Sunday and parts of Monday. So it was, but I think it's good for the game. I think the entertainment was there. Obviously, you don't want to see your players get into altercations, but it happens in every single sport. And I think it adds to the parity. We need these rivalries. We need this push for right. We need a push for them to want to go to the games, and this is exciting for them. So now when Chicago and Dallas play each other, there's a dynamic there. Like, you're definitely, if you're a fan of either one of those teams, you want to go back because you don't know if there's going to be another altercation. Arike gets ejected all the time. So, I mean, that can happen any given time, but it's at any given moment, Arike might be ejected. She's known for that.
Is she a little like our Karen?
Yes, she is. It's kind of similar to the GOAT. She Diana Taurasi. It's not a WNBA season if DT doesn't get ejected at least once, and probably about 10 technicals throughout the year. So, I think that between the Aces and the Liberty, though, I think that we are starting to see the Liberty really kind of hit their stride. When we watch NBA teams, if their roster has been recalibrated the way that New York has, and they call it a super team. I don't know that I necessarily call it a super team because they have some pieces that they drafted as well, but for me, in the NBA, we usually see those teams kind of hit their stride in like game 30 or game 40. About halfway through the season, we kind of see them start coming together. Well, at game 40, that's the entire regular season for the WNBA.
Right.
So I think we're just now kind of seeing what they're capable of. And even if they don't win it this year, they're fully capable next year after a little bit of time playing together. The Aces, while this was a tough loss for them, this was their biggest deficit of the season. It was only lost 3, y'all. They're 24-3, and they play the Wings tonight. So we should see how that goes. I think the Wings are going to be fueled off of losing to Chicago 2 games in a row, having an altercation, but also Vegas might be fueled by losing by almost 40 points. So it might get ugly either way. Who can
It'd
tell?
be a very scrappy game.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with that. I do love the fact that as a deterrent for admonishing or speaking out against the referees, that the W has stepped in and said and stopped that. I feel like we watch that happen across all sports, all levels, and
Right.
I would like to see that be more prevalent, that they step up and say, yeah, you can say what you want, you do have that, but it doesn't come without consequences. And
I mean, I kind of feel like
I don't know.
I feel like the reffing has been. I feel like the reffing has been, or the officiating has just been awful this season, especially when it comes down the stretch. Like, they're not getting the same calls in the first quarter that they're getting in the fourth quarter. And while I do think that you need to, respect the officials, it's tough when you know for a fact that they're wrong. You said what?
I said they needed work to be respected too. Because honestly, when you started saying that, I probably blame refs a little more than you do, but none of us actually do that a lot. And Megan, I think that's actually one of the first times I've heard you say that.
Say what?
some like say that the refs need to be more fair and even Steven, because when you were saying that, the first thing, sorry, it went men's basketball, but the first thing that came to mind was last year at Carolina versus Pitt. And let me tell you, those calls were not even. They were not equal. Like, then it kind of changed to be a little more even in the second half. But I actually think that only happened because a call had to have come down from the ACC ref.
So for example, Dallas played the Mystics recently, right? Mm-hmm. And we had 23 team fouls and they had 4. While we won the game and we benefited from that, I don't want to win it that way. You know what I mean? Like they had validity. They spoke out afterwards. And I want to say that Natasha Cloud spoke out and they didn't fine her, but then, you choose to fine who you want to fine. And I think that's wrong too. So there's two sides to that as well. Like, especially when somebody like Arike has a history of being fined for these things, y'all hurry up and slap her with that. But did you find Natasha Cloud? And not to criticize Natasha Cloud, because she was absolutely right. 23 to 4, like she was absolutely right. So, they fined Natasha last year for speaking out about.
We'll put that up again, because that's appropriate for right now.
I listen to a lot of people, and you remember I'm a Chiefs chick, so that's where my football is my drug. It's my addiction. People are saying, well, things are never called fairly. You're talking to a team that, if you were to go and look historically, we would our penalties are usually 10, 11 times the yards that somebody else gets. Granted, they're on bigger plays. I get that. And sometimes that's what happens. But I don't see that that's something that you can blame on officiating. Whether or not it is a right thing or a wrong thing, at the end of the day, they're paid to do a job, just like everyone's paid to do a job. Do I agree with how things always turned out? No, not really. But they're paid for a reason. I do not like it when fan bases, athletes, whatever, turn around and blame all of the issue on a call. I had, let's talk about this last Super Bowl. Someone came at me and said, well, if we'd had 1 minute left, if Jalen Hurts had one more minute off that instead of that bogus call, he would have sliced you all up and we would have won. I'm like, why did he wait for 59 minutes to turn it on and make it happen?
Right. Very true. You shouldn't have been that far behind in the first place, or been behind at all. And there's plenty of times that we see that happen, like there's a bad call, and yes, the call might even be atrocious, but getting to that point of you shouldn't have let the lead go, or you shouldn't have been in that position where you were losing by that much. Like time management oftentimes is the deciding factor.
Yeah.
In my life as well.
I love Tom Brady, fifth year. Fifth down.
Do you remember that we scored 3 points in the second time we went to the Super Bowl? Our last time we went back to back, and everybody's like, well, this and this. You could go, and if you want to take the time and go through my page, or if you want to go, I would open up all of my chats and shit. I never complained.
I don't know if anybody wants to do that.
No, I post a lot of
I don't know if you want to do that.
I'm not. So there's that. But I never complained about it. It wasn't our night. It wasn't meant to be. And our guys went with all kinds of things. And I could have used a whole bunch of, if you remember, there was a whole bunch of crap that fell out. That was during the COVID year. There was all kinds of things. It wasn't our night because my team did not play to the best of their ability.
And there were a lot of distractions that had literally happened within 72 hours before y'all even left the Super Bowl. Yeah.
Yeah. There was so many things, but the bottom line is my team did not play to their ability that night. So they earned that loss.
Right.
Yeah.
And Harry, I might have to mute you. Patrick will get there, but until his retirement, he was the GOAT of the postseason. I will not say he was the GOAT. I will say he was the GOAT of the postseason.
Happy belated birthday. God damn it. I messed up again.
He would be a Leo. Dang it.
And listen, he is not as much of a Leo as I am. Okay, August 1st. Come on, people. Oh, by the way, if y'all wish me a happy birthday, I'm sorry I haven't been on Facebook a lot lately. I'm sorry. I'll be better. But thank you for the
They
birthday.
were trying to sing for you last week, so I guess everybody's happy with that.
Right, we didn't sing for you.
Thank you.
we did definitely shout you out, but we didn't sing.
It's okay
all
because
right,
Adam Jarrett and I have the same birthday, so the crowd started singing "Happy Birthday" to him, and he was very touched by it. And I just started adding my name in quietly with my husband.
Right.
They were just misguided. They didn't know your name.
Right. Exactly. Nobody's heard us.
Because we are running close on time, I'm going to go ahead and talk to you. We kind of alluded to our doing what it takes to make ends meet to be able to play on the big field. And I ran across this happy story. I mean, it kind of touched my mama's heart as well as just overall. East Michigan player Brian Dooley has had a scholarship for the last 3 years. He has watched his teammate Zach Conti do work 2 jobs, donate plasma, whatever it took to, because he was a walk-on player as well, whatever it took to make it to play on the team. And he put his heart and soul into it, and then it starts the next day all over. So Brian talked to his family, talked to people around him. And once he made the decision, he walked up to coach and said, I'm giving my full ride to Zach Conti so he can continue to play and have a season. And I don't need the support. I don't have to work, and we can let him focus in on it. So this last Thursday, Brian walked in and gave Zach his scholarship, the letter from the school officially transferring the scholarship. And I sit there and think, my goodness, of all the things that we see come out of how we see everybody knocks, the younger generation, regardless of what happens, what a warm fuzzy that was to see. And as a mom, I'm thinking, man, I hope that my child would be willing to do something that significant to help somebody else out, and not for the fame and glory, just because it's something that they did from their heart.
Yes. Right. That was really good. And just so you know, while you're recapping that story, I posted it on the 3 Chicks website.
Fantastic.
Awesome. So
yeah,
you guys,
it's a really neat thing.
It made me cry a lot. Not a lot, but not a lot makes me cry anymore. But that one made me cry.
The wind can make me cry. It just happens.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm the opposite. I'm a crybaby. So
I'm
all
like,
right, well, that's going to do it for us this week.
Yeah.
I do want a quick shout out. My son turned 21 today. I don't know how that's possible because I'm just 21. But anyway, he turned 21.
Congratulations on having a 21-year-old and happy birthday, Colby.
And if you need a designated driver, call Rob.
Yes.
Which
is what we have said, the instructions we have given multiple times in the last week. So
happy birthday, Colby.
Thank you all for tuning in. As always, if you have something you would like for us to talk about, you want to share with us, whether it be in our inbox or on our webpage, our Facebook page, reach us on Twitter. We want to hear from you because we appreciate what you find when we miss it.
Yes. Thank you guys. See you in 7.